Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we are diving back into our duet series. So this is the final book in the Love is War series by R.K. Lilley. If you haven't listened to the first book in this series, which is called Breaking Him, that link is going to be available down below in the description section. Once you finish that review, come and join us as we dive into the final book in our duet series, Breaking Her. After that crushing phone call, Scarlett has been getting plastered on her days off. So this day, Anton's helping her do her day drinking. And then Demi, her roommate, comes in and she has her niece staying over for a couple days. And so Scarlett always bakes when she comes over, even though she doesn't really like kids. Her issues are pretty much because of the way, kids treated her when she was younger. And I get that. They were evil children, okay? So I get why she kind of feels like that. But she doesn't think Olivia is too bad. She can kind of deal with her. She's also been getting phone calls from Dante, and she's been answering. So apparently afterwards, she makes herself come, and he apparently does the same thing. So he calls this day and basically tells her that as long as she keeps answering, he's going to keep calling. So she tells him he needs to stop and that she's moved on. And she had Anton say in the background, "Come back to bed, baby." So Dante didn't say anything, but she could hear this painful sound come from him. And then he hung up. Which is, okay, again, this is just kind of crazy because you said some devastating things to that woman, Okay, you can't be with her, whatever, right? And it's like, but you won't leave her alone. He keeps calling the poor girl. And he knows she loves him. So she's still stuck. Oh, I tell you. So then we have a flashback. But it's going to be from Dante's POV. And I love it when books go back and forth from different point of views. So he's thinking about how he had been watching out for Scarlett way before they ever even met that day in the vice principal's office. He was always staring at her, but she never knew it. He told his gram, he would come home and tell his gram what the kids were doing to her. And his gram was just like, she needed someone to stick up for her, He also tells her about, I guess the girl, she's not bathing. Now, I don't know if this has to do with being poor or you just dirty, because I don't see why your grandmother, she cleans houses for a living, and you're trying to tell me there is no money for her to buy soap. She goes and drinks, so you can't tell me there's no soap in the house. I'm quite sure she bathes, or takes a shower. So I'm just kind of like, why are you not taking a shower? I'm just saying. But apparently she doesn't take them, and he asks his gram to kind of help, basically her how to clean herself, groom herself so she doesn't get picked on. Oh my gosh. So he talks about the relationship that he has with his mother as well, and how she's always planning the demise of people. And he had tried to keep her away from Scarlett as long as he could until that fateful day. And once his mother knew his weakness, then she went in to exploit it. So after she told Scarlett about how Dante was going to be with Olivia, and called her a slut and all that type of stuff, he went and he destroyed this room that had all kind of expensive things like Fabergé eggs, expensive shit. And he told his mom that the next time she took him out in front of her friends, he's going to start yelling, "Fuck, fuck, fuck." And she was like, "You wouldn't do that." And he was like, "I will," because he knows she hates to be embarrassed. Image is everything to her. Literally everything to her. So he thought that was going to keep her in check, but it only did for a small time frame. He miscalculated her. We come back to the present, and Scarlett and her friends are having a day at the beach. So the paparazzi was called by Anton's agent, and so him and Scarlett played it up for him. So according to the paparazzi, they think they have an on and off again relationship. So Demi bought a college friend named Harry, and Anton was super jealous. And then Demi was jealous with the, you know, I guess the plan that like Anton and Scarlett were doing. So Demi told them that she got the role on his TV show because Anton's on a popular TV show, and she's actually going to wind up being his love interest. And he told her it wasn't a good role for her, as she was going to have to be topless and get on her knees, and he didn't think that would be a good way for, you know, her wholesome family to see her for the first time on screen. So she gets really upset. He walks off, and then Scarlett goes after him and told him, you know, chill out. You know, this is a big deal for her. She's really excited. And she also went off on him because she could kind of tell, like, because at first it wasn't like clicking in Scarlett's head, because Scarlett be worried about Scarlett a lot of times. So finally it clicked in her head, like, why the two of them are like acting crazy is because he's jealous that she brought this hairy guy, and then she's jealous because they were playing in front of the paparazzi like they were a couple. So he apologized to Demi, and they went off and they went for a walk. Dante has a flashback to when he was 15, and he saw how violent his mother was with the staff. So on this date with Scarlett's grandmother, Glenda, her actual grandmother, and she was like hitting the woman in the head with the spoon because apparently she didn't clean the silver properly, or polish the silver properly. And so this kind of makes me think that's probably why she takes everything out on Scarlett, because she takes everything at work from this woman and then she dumps it on a kid. It's still wrong, but it seems like that's probably what's going on with her. Still wrong and still, you know, just weird, but that seems to be why she's doing it. So then he goes to his father's for the weekend. He didn't really want to go, but his mom was just like, it's a part of the deal. You got to go. So stop crying about it. So his dad sends a driver. He's like 3 hours late to pick him up. Takes him back to the house, and he has a house full of women along with his mistress, Heather. So apparently they were prostitutes, and he wanted his son to take advantage of it. Keep in mind, the boy's like 15. So he even offered his son Heather, his own mistress, and she was ready to do it. But he didn't want her, and he looked at her as a prostitute as well. And he said her eyes look dead. That's just sad. So Scarlett has a married couple friend that absolutely adores her, Gina, and I think the husband is named Eugene. So they're just genuinely good people. They're both attorneys. She doesn't have any hangups about them having money because she feels like they're just such good people. They just deserve it. So she lets them know about the audition that she has for a part in the movie and thinks it really went well. They, of course, are like, I know you're going to get it. And they have a daughter named Mercy, and she actually kind of likes Mercy too. So then when she leaves, she goes to the mall, and we find out that Dante's family owns one of like the largest department stores in the country, and it's apparently really high end. But she goes in and she tries on dresses and shoes and says to herself, you know, one day I'm going to be able to do this all for myself. So then she gets a call from Dante. So she ignores it at first, but then she answers the second time, and he tells her, you've never given the true part of yourself to anyone but me. And she was like, why do you keep doing this to me? And he was like, because I want to know that you cannot escape me and you. Like, you're never going to be able to do that. So she eventually tells him she hates him, and then she gets a call from her agent with some life-changing news. Scarlett has a flashback to high school when he was on the football team, and one of the pom-pom girls was assigned to him, and she baked him some peanut butter cookies. He loved them, and this is why she learned to bake so well, because she didn't want him eating anybody's cookies. Which is kind of crazy, because even, remember when she's upset, she wants to bake, right? And that's crazy that in her anger, she still wants to do something that is about him, you know? Like, that's why you do it. That's crazy. So she's out in Seattle with her friends. She wants to get laid. And in walks Bastian. So she was like, he's perfect. And she even kissed him, but he pulled away, and he was like, we can't cross that line. And he made a grunt when she pulled away, and even said, you taste so good. But he couldn't do that to Dante. And he even told her, Dante needs to lock you away. And she was like, nope, He threw me away again. So Bastian tells her that Dante isn't doing good and that he has something to tell her, and it was more life-changing stuff. So Scarlett has a flashback when her grandmother found out she was having sex. She had gone through the trash and found used condoms, threw them at her, called her every name in the book, told her she thought she was a step up from her mother because she used condoms, but she was still trash, and that the Durant boy was going to throw her away when he was done with her. So she went to Graham's house where Dante was, and he was there with Tiffany, and they were dressed like really nicely because they had come from the country club, and she had on like this big shirt and it had cum stains on it because his grandmother had thrown the used condoms on her. So he wanted to go and confront the grandmother, but it would be to no avail. So they went in the woods to fuck, and Tiffany followed them. They didn't know, and she watched them. So Dante thinks she doesn't want him, but Scarlett knows, and she's like, she wants you. So on another day, Dante was like, you, me, and Tiffany, we should go to the movies. Scarlett didn't want to go at first, but then she was like, okay, cool, but I'll meet you there. Well, she called Reese, who was one of the guys that had like picked on her in school. And Reese would like call her a lot because he was always trying to ask her out. And she would always be like, I'm with Dante. And he didn't care. He kept calling. Well, she asked him if he had a car, and he's like, yeah. And then she asked, well, do you know Tiffany? Do you like Tiffany? And he was like, she's all right. So she got a ride with Reese, and of course, Dante lost it. And while he and Reese were having it out, we find out that Tiffany was exactly like Scarlett thought. Tiffany let her know she was playing for the long haul. She wanted him to think that he didn't like her, so that when he came to her, it would be because he wanted her. So she told Dante that Tiffany was just like his mother, and he didn't believe it. But he did agree to stay away from Tiffany if she stayed away from Reese. So back to the present, Scarlett wakes up to a bunch of calls from Bastian, and when he calls again, she answers. So we still don't know what was discussed, just that she needed to keep acting as if she doesn't know anything, and that apparently Dante is somewhere in Seattle, but no one knows where. So remember the last scene in the previous book, Breaking Him, and she was walking in the woods after leaving school, not waiting for Dante. So this picks up there. So all she remembers is being hit in the back of the head and everything going black. When she came to, there were cops at her side. She was in the hospital, and she was handcuffed to the bed. So the Flynn lady, the Flynn officer, she didn't want to take her seriously because she was like, oh, she always gets into fights and trouble. And the other officer, a guy, his name was Harris, was like, she clearly was attacked. We've got to treat this like any other case because she is a victim. But that tells you how crazy that is, that just because this person got into fights, she has physical proof that something happened to her, and they didn't care. They were still stuck on her previous behavior. That's effed up. So the Harris guy was fine. We'll go back. We'll start the paperwork at the precinct. Well, the Flynn lady said that. So apparently there were lots of sexual offenders who had gone missing in these same woods. They wouldn't let Dante in at first, but then he was able to stay the night, and he saw the bruises she had on her breast, literally black and blue. And he took her back to Graham's house, and he told her, how he didn't really trust that Detective Harris guy. So after staying with Graham for a few days, she decides to go back to the trailer park. Her grandmother's pissed at her, called her all kind of names, and was like she shouldn't have to hear this type of stuff from anyone else, and then kicked her out. Then one day when she went to get the rest of her stuff, the Officer Harris guy came over, and he wanted to take her statement again. And he came alone. And she asked if she could call a friend, and he told her no, because this was an active, case, active investigation. She asked to call Graham, but he told her no. So he wasn't there to hear her statement at the police station because the Officer Flynn woman took it. And she talks about how he made her tell and demonstrate on him what happened. Now that in itself, but see, that's that whole thing about power. And she's a kid, you know what I'm saying? Like, she's what, 15, 16 or something like that? Maybe 17? Around that age? And you know, she thinks I have to do this. He's blocked her in, you know? That's just so freaking terrible. So, of course, as she's describing the scene, her stuttering comes back. And she called the officer after everything had happened. She was like, she was scared to tell Dante. So she figured, okay, I can call and I can tell the Officer Flynn lady. Told her what happened, but she didn't believe her. Told her she was just like her mother, who apparently had stole her boyfriend at high school. Now, how disgusting is that? You're a whole ass officer. You can easily see where the guy was that day. You know what I'm saying? You can tell where he was, I'm sure. You know, and it's like, you didn't even care because you're stuck on some high school shit. I was like, oh my gosh, these people are deplorable in this town. We come back to the present, and Dante has snuck into her trailer for the movie that she's shooting. And he thought when she came in, she would call security, but she didn't. She started taking off her clothes, and he was like, I didn't come here for that. But she kept on, and they wound up fucking and asking each other questions that neither one of them answered. He wanted to know if she had an inkling of love left for him. Like, do you love me as much as you hate me? And she wanted to know what secrets he had been keeping from her. Nobody answered anybody. She freshened up, and she told him not to be there when she got back. This fool just took a nap on the couch. So we get a flashback, and it's the officer. Well, it's not from Officer Harris's perspective, but it's a flashback, and she's describing how Officer Harris came to Graham's house to talk to her twice. But when he saw that Graham, aka Mr. Ranch, she wasn't leaving Scarlett's side, he stopped coming. But then he started pulling her out of class to ask her different mundane questions. And he asked to see her locker, which is fucking weird. You know, like, what do you need to see my locker for? They ain't got shit to do with what's going on. And so she got pissed and was like, what are you doing to catch this guy? And he got mad and grabbed her and basically let her know that he could do whatever he wanted to her because no one was going to believe her. How fucked up. Ugh. Dante saw this and yelled at him to get the fuck off of her, and he even pushed the guy into the lockers, and then the police drew his gun and had him on the ground, cuffed him. All the students were coming out of the hall after hearing Scarlett scream, and he took him away. So she went to Graham's, and they were about to leave for the police station, but Harris pulled up with Dante in the back of the car. So Dante said that apparently they aren't doing anything unless the homeless guy, because she knew it was that homeless guy that kind of roams around. She was able to see his face because he turned around. And basically, unless he turns himself in, nothing was going to happen. So the next day, Dante is arrested for taking out her attacker. So we come back to the present. Scarlett comes back to her trailer, and Dante was still there. He had gotten her some shoes, but even though she loved them, she told him, you got to stop buying me stuff. So when he looks at her and she looks at him, he knows that she knows whatever the secret is. We still don't know yet because they haven't said it. And she says to him, what did you do? And he fled. He got out of there. He ran out of there. So we go back to the past. Scarlett's at a grocery store picking up some things for Graham, and she sees Jethro. Jethro is the man that everyone says is her father. His last name's Davis. So he was looking at her, and he came up to her, and he said, I know you. And he was like, he's like, you know who I am, don't you? And after looking at him, she realized, yeah, this probably is my father. And it destroyed the thought that she had in her head that her father could be like some nice rich man who just didn't know she existed. But seeing him made her know she came from like even more white trash. That's so sad. So he asked her if she wanted a job. If she wanted to do some work for him at the high school. So basically selling drugs to students. So then Officer Harris comes up, tells Jethro, I bet if I check your pockets, I can get you on possession. So Jethro leaves her alone, but she didn't want to be left alone with Harris. So he, of course, asked her, how she was and told her Dante, is dangerous and that he'd gone into those woods looking to take out that man. And he told her to be careful and like all this BS. So Dante had told her that when he went out there, he was going to take the guy in. But the guy pulled a knife on him. They got into a fight and he wound up stabbing him. That's what Dante said. Her father Jethro had said something to her though before he walked off. Basically, like, you need to learn how to earn your keep. You know, like, those Durants may decide they don't want you anymore. You need to be able to take care of yourself. And so that did make her think like she wanted to really start earning her keep. And so she went and talked to Graham and let her know that, you know, she wanted to get a job. And Graham was like, you know, she'd buy her a car. And she said, no, I don't want you to do that. You've got plenty of extra cars. If I need to get somewhere, I'll just use one of those. So that was kind of her way of trying to set some boundaries. So we come to the present. She's on the set of the new movie. The lead actor, he's trash. After the director threatened to fire him because he felt Scarlett she embodied the character. And she was magic. But the guy was a problem. So the guy had, he was all pissed. He was all in his feelings. But after the director threatened to fire him, he got it together. And then he actually did do a decent job. So she goes back to her trailer, and guess who's there? Drunk again on the couch. Old Dante. So Scarlett asked Dante, you know, why he was there. And he said, because I can't stay away. I just can't. And I'll take whatever, you know, crumb you'll give me. So she mentions again that she knows something, but we still don't know what it is, which just pisses me off. So Scarlett goes back to work. She comes back. Dante's still there. And she again let him know, I know. Then she was like, I have questions and we need to talk. And he said, okay, cool. She said, we can talk when I'm finished shooting for today. So shooting went on until the wee hours of the morning, but Dante stayed right there for her, and they drove to a house that he said he was renting. He wanted to go take a shower. She made some omelets. They kind of ate in silence, and then she said to him, so your mother's been blackmailing you? And he said, yes. I'm like, finally, we kind of know what's going on. So we still don't exactly know what she's blackmailing him with, but I'm like, at least we know it's blackmail. But we do know that this house really isn't a rental. He's in the process of buying it because he wants to live there with her. So he got the house so that way he could be with her, but his mother wouldn't know. So before she asks any questions, of course, you know, they wind up fucking that night. Pretty much the whole night. So Scarlett gets, we go back to the past, flashback. Scarlett gets a job at a diner. She tells Grams about it. She actually sees a different side to Graham because she's pissed. And Scarlett tries to explain to her, she's like, you know, I don't like feeling like a charity case. And Graham was like, I thought I was just showing you love. I didn't realize I was treating you like a charity case. And that did something to Scarlett. And she started stuttering, which she hadn't done in a long time. So then Graham was like, oh, fuck, like, damn it, I'm sorry. I didn't realize it was this important to you. And she was like, okay, it's fine. I'm sorry. Now then she had to contend with Dante, because he was just like, at first he says, you don't need anything you need, like, Graham will get it for you. And she's like, that's not the point. I want to be able to buy and do things for myself. And he was like, well, his thing was that Officer Harris is going to find out where you work and he's going to start bothering you. And that's a real concern. I get that. And she hadn't really thought about it, which to me, I'm kind of like, how the fuck you not thinking about that? But okay, I digress. He says, okay, but I'm going to take you to work and I'm going to pick you up. And she was like, okay, fine. So then on the 5th day of her shift, guess who comes in? Officer Harris. He drinks coffee there. The police officers get coffee for free. And he just stares at her, and he's like on his laptop and he's just staring at her. And she told the owner about it, but he's not going to do anything. He's like, don't give me, don't make any issues with cops, So one day he says to her, your lips look swollen. Were you sucking your boyfriend's cock before you came to work? You two live together? Do you wake him up sucking his cock, like saying crazy ass shit to this girl? Now, me personally, I feel like that to me should have been enough for her to say, you know what, I'm going to just quit. Because the owner of the diner is not going to help you. I would have just quit, But she had made up in her mind, okay, if he does one more thing, then I'll quit. But okay. So The poor girl, she didn't get much sleep. We're back to the present. I'm sorry, I didn't say that. We're back to the present. Scarlett doesn't get much sleep because, of course, she's ravished her all night. She might have gotten like 4 hours of sleep. So he took her to the set, and he told her, we'll talk more when you get off. But he also told her, when your friends are in town, you have to stay at that apartment. So I'm like, I wonder why he said that. So she gets off work and she goes, she wants to know, what does she have on you? And he tells her, I'm wondering if this is about him taking out the homeless guy. Like, they got him off of that because they said it was self-defense. So is that what they're holding over his head? I'm assuming. I don't know. We'll see. We shall see. So apparently we also find out that the 2 phone calls that he's made to her that broke her heart, the mother was standing right there, and she lost it. She started crying like uncontrollably, and she just started saying over and over again, you don't know, do you? So she never goes further into it because I guess whatever it is has caused her too much pain, and so no more questions was asked that night. So we go back to the past, and Scarlett tells us of how Harris came in one day and he was super pissed at her. This is at the diner because her ass is still working there, because apparently her gram had went to his superiors and let them know what's been going on, and now he's been bothering Scarlett and he was about to get in trouble. So he stopped bothering her for just a little bit, and then one day he came and got out of school and told her that Dante was going to be charged with the M word, and unless she helped him put all the different sexual violations against other women, against, like, if she could help prove that the homeless guy, that again, he's already deceased, okay, but if she could help prove that, then they could get Dante off. That doesn't even sound right to me, but again, she's a kid, she's afraid, she loves that guy to pieces, and that man knows that, so she's gonna go. So she's walking out with him, and the person that saw her was Tiffany. And she told Tiffany, it's Tiffany. And I called her Olivia earlier. My bad. I forgot. It's Tiffany. And she's told Tiffany, tell Dante, to call me, to like get in contact with me as soon as he can. Let him know that I'm leaving with Officer Harris. And she just nodded her head like, yeah, she understood. So this must be that time where when in the first book, when Dante was like, this is, your fault, you ruined my life and everything. This must be why he was screaming that, because she saw him leave with the officer. So we come back to the present. She wakes up having cried herself to sleep, and she's on his chest. And they have sex, of course, and then they go have breakfast, and he drops a bomb on her and tells her that one of her roommates is a spy for Adelaide, his mother. Mic freaking drop. That I was not prepared for. I really wasn't. So I'm floored by that revelation, because I did not see that coming at all. So apparently Adelaide has hired someone to watch her every move. How crazy is that? So he told her she can't change how she's acting, because then they'll know, and they'll know that she's on to him. So she's got to remain normal. But whoever it is, they know they're going to quit pretty soon, their job. Whoever it is. That's how you're going to know who it is. Oh my gosh. So this is going to crush her, because she literally loves all 3 of the women. So that she lives with. That's so sad. So she's keeping up with the whole thing of them not being together. Her girlfriends went on a trip, so she met up with Dante at the home. He surprised her with the kitten. She loves kittens. So then he let her, he let Leo know that he's basically going to take a little sabbatical. So he's going to take a little time off from working. But he told her, we're not out of the woods yet. This shit's dangerous. And until we get more on Adelaide, she still has the upper hand. So he apparently is working with Bastian to try and get some type of info on Adelaide. So Scarlett made the comment that pretty much like she should just stay away from him because it's not safe, and he lost it and was like, if you know, if that was something you can do, but I can't, like, I cannot be away from you, like there's just no other way for me. So we go back to the past, and Scarlett describes what happened when she leaves with Officer Harris. He doesn't take her to the station. He takes her to her actual grandmother's house, Glenda's, the trailer, because he knew she wasn't going to be there. So she kicked and screamed at that point. When she saw he took her there and he dragged her out the car, she kicked and screamed because she knew, like, okay, this is bad. So she did everything she could. She bit him. Everything. But nothing fazed him. He took her to her room, tied her up, and basically had his way with her for 4 hours. So you can only imagine, right? So he kept trying to make her look at him while he was doing this to her, and she wouldn't do it. And he would punch her. He would slap her. It was absolutely awful. And then finally he untied her and he fell asleep. First, she snuck out. She saw his gun, and old girl empty the whole clip into his bag. Dante finally arrives, banging on the door, and it kind of brought her like back to the present because she blacked out, and she hadn't looked to see what exactly she had done, because after she did it, she walked out the room. So Dante kept saying, "I've been searching for you for hours. Nobody knew where you were." And then he told her he was going to take the rap for what happened, because he went in there and he saw what had happened. And he kept apologizing to her, saying, "I'm so sorry I didn't reach you in time. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." Because you got to remember, to him, he's her protector, you know? And that's hard for him. He failed her, you know? Because, like, everybody else fails her, pretty much except for him and Graham. But everybody else is trash. And that was just, oh, that's just so, it was so sad to read that. And he kept saying, you know, it was self-defense, and she was like, "We can't say that because I shot him in the back." And he just kept going on, but he didn't care. He was like, he was going to take the rap. He was not going to let her go down for this. So he said, "You don't worry about it. I'm going to take care of it." So they washed her the best they could. He took her to Graham's, told her everything that had happened. She finally went to sleep, and while she was asleep, Graham had called a doctor over to examine her. And you could tell, you know, to examine that, yeah, she had very much been violated. And it was super awful. And he told her what her alibi was going to be, and that Graham was going to be her alibi. And basically that she was supposed to say that he came and got her from school, but then he dropped her off at Graham's house and she hasn't seen him since. And that's supposed to be the alibi. I'm like, oh my gosh. Ooh! And she kept trying to ask and find out, you know, like what happened to the body. But he's like, "You don't need to know anything." In other words, you know, if you don't, that way when you say you don't know, it's the honest truth. You're not going to know what happened to the body. So Scarlett's doing the sex scene. She's not comfortable because, of course, we're back to the present. I'm sorry. So all of those thoughts of having somebody else touch her, it takes her back to that time. And she doesn't like it, right? So she finally yelled out to the director, "Can't we do something else without his direction, like digging into my hip?" So the director was like, "It doesn't feel natural anyway. We'll do something different." So he made it to where you see her taking off her shirt, and then it fades to black. So she goes to her trailer, and Dante's in there, and he's talking on the phone, and he's dealing with Graham's charity. So he tried to touch her, but she didn't want him to touch her after she had the hands of some other man on her. So she went and scrubbed herself clean, and when she came out, he knew what was going on, and he was just like, "No career is worth this." And she said, "It's not that bad. I can deal with it." And he, of course, was like, it's hard for him, of course, to see her with somebody else, even if it's just on screen. But he would never stand in the way of her not pursuing her dreams. But he wants her to be okay, you know? So then he tells her about the money that Graham had left her, because he had tried to tell her about this before, but she had told him she didn't want anything, give it all to charity. Well, we find out Graham left her a whole fucking $8 million. But she still felt the same way. She wanted it to go to charity. She felt like she didn't earn it. And she wanted it to make and help somebody else. I don't know. I don't really agree. But hey, if that's how she felt, hey, if she can live with it and she's fine with it, cool. Whatever. Then we find out Adelaide didn't get anything out of the she didn't get anything left to her in the will. And she has been on an absolute warpath ever since. So then Scarlett gets a text, and it's from Farrah saying that she has put in her 2 weeks notice, and now they know who the mole is. It's Farrah. So we go to the past, and we get a memory from Scarlett. And it was after the whole incident had happened, and how she was just not, she wasn't the same. They did graduate. He went to Harvard. She followed him. He had set up an apartment for them there. She was there with him, but she had nothing to do and she was miserable. So she got a job at a diner, and she worried about not being able to like sexually be with him. But he told her, listen, this is not about me. This is about you. And it's about what you need. He's like, whatever you need, that's what I'll be. And I was like, that's super sweet, because he wasn't concerned with his physical needs. He realized what that woman had gone through was so fucking horrendous. Like, that's love. I will say that. To put yourself, you know, and just humane too. You know what I mean? Like, just on a human level, like wanting to force someone to do that, that would be a lot, you know? So we come back to the present, and Farrah and Scarlett, they've gone shopping because she obviously can't tell her no. And it's getting harder and harder because she knows this bitch is spying on her. And Farrah kept asking her, like, who's the new guy? And she realizes this bitch has always been prying into my life. Like, she's always been asking a bunch of questions, but she just kind of thought, okay, this is a part of her personality. So she told her she was hooking up with Anton and that it was nothing serious. You know, just something to kind of pass the time. So Farrah was like, well, does Demi know about it? And Scarlett was like, why would she know? So then they go back to the apartment. She goes straight to her room. She feels trapped because she doesn't feel okay in that apartment anymore. You know, the only place she feels kind of safe is in her room, away from everybody. And I can understand that. You know, a bitch is literally just fucking watching you. Oh, that is just so freaking wild. Bastien comes to talk to Scarlett, and Farrah even tried to come along with them, and Bastien was like, no, we have things to talk about. So then they walk, and he lets her know, you know, him and Dante have been talking, but Dante won't tell him what Adelaide is holding over his head. And so he starts guessing, and then he says, it's not like you killed somebody or anything. And old girl tensed up, and he was like, oh my God. And his eyes went wide, and he started cursing, and they just kept walking. So we go back to another past memory after college. She had stayed with him for 2 years, and then it started to get to her because she felt like she was putting her dreams on hold. Now, here's my issue with this. You were in Boston. You're not going to tell me that Boston does not have playhouses that you could have gone to and perfected your craft before you took your ass to LA. Like, I feel like if she was doing something that she loved, she wouldn't have hated it so much. But you went to a fucking diner, which I didn't understand that. Like, I figured you would still be kind of traumatized because the person that violated you literally was stalking you at the diner. Like, I wouldn't want to work there ever again. But you go and do that, but you're not going to go and do things that could actually help you improve as an actress. That makes no fucking sense. That was just my mini rant about that. So she had saved up all her money doing the waitressing, and he thought she was breaking up with him, and she's like, no, that's not what I'm doing, but I need to do this. And so she's like, we're going to do long distance. He, of course, fought her. But when she agreed to let him pay for the last month's rent, he was like, all right, fine. So they were flying back and forth and, you know, coming back on the weekends to see each other as often as they could. They were making it work. And then he came to visit her one time, and he gave her his Graham's ring. And it's not like he gave her some grand proposal. It was just like, we get married. But it was kind of like they'd always known that, like, that's what it was going to be. So there was no romance with it because they were going to be together. And then another weekend, she flew in to surprise him on his birthday. And she goes to the bar, and she sees him talking to Tiffany. And she lost it. And so she just flat out asked Tiffany, like, why are you here? And Tiffany was like, I came to visit my friend. It's not like you own him. And that's when Scarlett threw that old engagement ring out, and Tiffany went pale and she ran out of there. So then Dante got pissed because he's like, Adelaide's going to know within the hour. And that's going to cause a problem. And she was like, I don't care. And I'm like, girl, you might want to care. We come back to the present, and Dante and Scarlett are having dinner, and he tells her, he makes a statement. He says, Bastian's the one that told you, isn't he? And so she's like, yeah. So apparently Adelaide, with her information from Farrah, had told her that Bastian had came to the house or the apartment the other day, and they left together, and that apparently back in Seattle they were all over each other and she kissed him. And so she was insinuating that they were sleeping together, and it sounds plausible. Let's just be honest. There's enough evidence to convict. And Dante was believing it, and she told him what really happened, and that she had tried to with Bastian, but he told her he couldn't do it to his brother. So then, of course, after they like all riled up and everything, they got to have like a great fuck session, and so they did. So then we go back to the past, a memory with Dante, and we find out that he came home to his apartment. This is when he was at Harvard, and there were pictures on the table, and there were pictures of him and Scarlett coming out of the trailer. She had blood on her. And then there's pictures of him taking the body out. And so the mom knew that Scarlett was the one that had taken out the cop. So that means the person that took the fucking pictures knew what was going on in there too, and they let that happen to that girl. So fucking awful. So I wonder if the mother's the one that took the pictures, but she probably just hired somebody to do it. But that's just so fucking crazy. So she tells him, you break up with her and you marry Tiffany. He was like, nope, I'll just turn myself in. She said, okay, do the engagement with Tiffany for a year. Nope. She was like, okay, do it for 6 months. And then then she changed it from that because that still wasn't working. So then she told him, if you stay away from Scarlett for 5 years, I'll let you be after that. You can do whatever you want. So she figured after that amount of time, he wouldn't want her anymore, right? But he was still willing to turn himself in. But the mother knew how much Scarlett loved him, and that if he did that, Scarlett was going to confess. Because she wasn't going to let him go down for that. And that's what got him. So he agreed to the whole 5-year thing. And so he made the call telling her it wasn't going to work, and that they don't work anymore. That was the first time he broke her heart. So we're back to the present. Dante comes home. Scarlett's already there, and she's like hugging herself. And she just has, this despair look on her face. And he was just like, we just need to have it out. She needs to know that she doesn't have to carry these burdens alone. That's what he wanted her to understand. And so they have this whole conversation, and we find out old boy never fucked anybody else. And she's like, you're lying. And she went crazy because she had thought for sure he had fucked at least Tiffany, like they were engaged. Dude said, I never even kissed her. She was like, no, because she done fucked other people. So when he would parade around her with other women, she thought he was he was doing stuff. He wouldn't. He said, I didn't want anybody else. I felt like I was like betraying you if I did that. And she lost it. Because, the fact that she had other men made her feel worse. And it was like, oh my gosh. So then she locked herself in the bathroom. He had to go and get the cat. And was like, the cat's missing you. I think they call the cat Diablo. And it finally lured her out. And so she let it be known that basically her issue was he didn't give her a choice. And he was like, you going to jail wasn't a choice. He said, I knew you wouldn't let me go. And so therefore there was no choice. I made the only choice that there was. So then we go back to the past. And we find out what happened after Dante had made that phone call to her. She, of course, was in disbelief at first until she got a text message from Tiffany saying that they were engaged and she needed to give back Graham's ring. Then she sent pictures of her and Dante, like taking engagement photos. And that completely crushed Scarlett. So then Scarlett let Nate, remember Nate was like a childhood friend of Dante, like one of his best friends. She let Nate comfort her. He flew out to LA to see her, and she basically led him to believe that she loved him. And he had asked her to marry him, and she had said yes. And then one day while Nate was in the shower, he had gotten a call from Dante and was like, she picked up the phone and she was like, oh, you want to talk to Nate? He's in the shower. He likes to shower after Dante lost it. And he was like, you didn't do that. And she was like, oh, yes, I did. And he was just like, you're heartless. And he told her, I'm finished with you. And then after that, she dumped Nate. But she told him the truth, that she had never felt anything for him. And she had only slept with him to get back at Dante. And the poor boy flew back home and he took a bunch of pills. He tried to take himself out. So his mom, of course, was like, you need to stay away from that girl. That's bad. That's awful, though. Like, but I mean, hurt people, you know? That's just a prime example of it. Doesn't make it right, but that's what happens. So back to the present, she gets a call from Nate, and she couldn't lie about it because Dante had saw it on the phone. And she just told him that when they saw each other at the funeral, she had told him, you know, that they could talk. And, you know, she was like, it's not his fault. You can't be mad at him. And we find out that Dante had actually sent Nate out there to comfort her. And Nate had apparently taken it too far. But I think it's a little bit of both. You know, maybe, yeah, he took it too far and she wanted to use him, you know. So she didn't know this, of course. But Dante told her, you cut off all contact immediately. And at first she was going to fight him on it. But then she was like, you know what? If we got to find a chance, some stuff just got to be let go of. And that was one of them. So they had this big fight pretty much about being able to let things go. And he still wears the necklace that has the key from the cabin that they had their first time in, along with the ring that he had given her. He wears that on a chain around his neck, never takes it off. And he literally rubs it when he gets stressed, and it calms him down. And when she saw that, she realized, like, he's always known that it was supposed to be them and that they really have each other's souls. So Scarlett gets a call from an unknown number. She doesn't know who it is. She doesn't answer it. The number calls again. She answers it. It's Adelaide. Adelaide tells her, I know what's been going on, with you and my son, and we need to meet up. So, of course, at first she's like, no. But then Adelaide was like, either you get in the car with one of my men at your studio gate, or you go to jail for taking out a cop. I don't think there's a statute of limitations on that. So she's about to get in the car, and Adelaide calls her phone again and was like, do you have her? Because the guy had tried to take her cell phone, but he hadn't gotten it yet. And so Scarlett answered and was like, nope, he hasn't gotten me in the car yet. Well, then Dante pulls up. He gets her out of there. And then he tells her they're going to go and meet with Bastien, because apparently he's got some information. So they go to his hotel. Of course, he has a penthouse. And their father, Leo's there. And he's drunk as usual. And Bastien lets him know that he thinks that Adelaide had Graham taken out. He had a coroner say that she had suffered trauma in the back of the head post-mortem. But normally when a person has a stroke, they go forward, not backwards. But apparently now the coroner's gone MIA. So they don't know if he's buried somewhere or retired in Fiji. But he has someone else with some information, and he calls out Tiffany. So all the secrets come out now. Tiffany has footage, I think audio, of Adelaide pretty much confessing that she did take Graham's out. She has more stuff too on Adelaide, but she told her story of what happened. She basically was told, she was promised that she was going to be Dante Durant's wife. She was going to be a Durant. That was promised to her when she was young, to the point that the girl had already picked out her wedding dress when she was 15 years old. Okay? So her thing was she wanted to be a Durant. So Bastien has agreed to marry her. And so at first, you know, Scarlett's like, no, you can't do that. And then Bastien makes a statement that basically I'll never be able to have the person that I'm in love with. So he is in love with Scarlett as well. And Dante has known this whole time. That's why they have so much friction between the two of them, because they're in love with the same woman. So Scarlett realizes this, but it's still like, you deserve to be happy. And he was just like, this is happening. This is the way, this is the only way for you to be together and for us to take down Adelaide. So then we get some more background about Scarlett's parents. So Leo was in love with Scarlett's mother. I cannot remember what her name was, and I did not write it down. But he was in love with her mother. And he went off to school. He met Adelaide. She was conniving from the get-go, got pregnant super quick. And when he came back to visit home, he saw Scarlett's mom was already like 7 months pregnant. So one night, Adelaide, she'd already had the baby at this point. She started beating herself. And then there was a knock on the door. He goes to the door, and it's Scarlett's mom, and she's been like beaten damn near half to death. Well, Jethro had beat her half to death, and she was in active labor. So Leo helped deliver the baby before he could even, before he could call 911, she was gone. There was no saving the mother. So Adelaide told him, if you call the police, I'm going to tell them you beat me up. And she had proof lined up to take him down. So Adelaide is the one that took her and put her in the dumpster. And so Scarlett asked, well, Leo, did my mother want me? And he said, yes, she was excited about you. She was ready to have you. And that gave her some peace, even though this was such a sordid tale. But she basically had felt her whole life that her mother didn't want her and threw her away. So then we also find out there's this thing with her actual grandmother, Glenda. She has agreed to confess to taking out Officer Harris. She apparently has pancreatic cancer, like stage 4. She's on her way out of here and has like maybe a good 6 months left. And so this is her way of trying to make amends for all she's done. She stopped drinking. And Dante, when he came to her with the proposal, he didn't even have to convince her, because she was like, yeah, I'll do it. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And she couldn't wrap her brain around it. Like, why is she doing this? And Dante was like, because she loves you. She's an awful person, though. She's still awful. So we get another bombshell. We find out Gina, which remembers her married friend to Eugene that has the child, Mercy. That is Scarlett and Dante's fucking daughter. I was shocked. I didn't see that coming. So she found out she was pregnant a month after he dumped her, because she had been on like antibiotics and stuff. And so, when you do that, wipes out the pill. So they have this massive argument, super hard for him. And that's understandable. He's like, you should have told me. And she was like, I couldn't. I thought you would reject us. And he said, why would you ever think that? And that's how she felt. She thought he was going to turn her away. So she thought the best thing to do was to give him to a loving family. So they go and visit the child. She's a mixture of them both. She took to Dante right away. She doesn't know who he is, but she took to him. And it's like an open adoption. And I think that's why she comes over and visits. And Scarlett didn't want the open adoption, but Gina felt like that was the best thing to do. So Scarlett goes home to see her grandmother. She lives in a nice apartment now. We found out that Adelaide was arrested. She's in prison. There was no bail, and her 2 of her henchmen turned on her immediately after they were arrested. Her grandmother had been arrested and everything, but the lawyers got her out. Her bond was $1 million, and she's pretty much gonna probably die in this nice apartment. So she comes in and they have a conversation. And Glenda apologizes to her, and she told her about when she was younger, she had met this like really beautiful looking man, and he pursued her. He was so gorgeous. And then a few weeks after he'd gotten her on her back, he was done with her. And then she found out that it was a bet that he had won $50 for sleeping with the ugliest girl in school. So she apologized to her for how she treated her. And they just had this whole conversation. They both cried. And she let her know, these last few months, if you want to come and visit me, I won't mind it. I'll understand it if you don't. But I wouldn't mind being able to see you a few more times and tell you I love you those times as well. And so she tells her she'll come. She's fine with that. A few months later, she has her premiere. She has this beautiful lavender Givenchy gown. Wonderful night. And then they have their wedding. What's his name? Dante had promised Mercy that she could be a flower girl because Scarlett really didn't want a wedding, but you know, they promised Mercy, so they had to go through. They were going to do it. And so they had a small, but it was a lavish wedding. And that is how it ends. Okay, this video is long, and I'm so sorry about that, but there was just so much that happened. And so much to kind of try to dive into. I didn't even do as many rants as I wanted to. It's just so much. What did you guys think of this? I absolutely loved it. Again, Trini Star, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Feel free to throw some more options for me out there, some good reads. I really appreciated this. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. If you are in the neighborhood looking for a beautiful notebook journal, I do have those available. That link is going to be available as well down below in the description section. As always, make sure you like and subscribe, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.